Since TechWeb eliminates the need for any type of printed work orders or paperwork, TechWeb allows you to have charges calculated either automatically or you can enter them manually. You can also accept the type of payment being received and also have the customer sign off digitally on the work order and send them out a receipt. So to do all that, go under the Payment tab. And you'll notice here that there's a total materials, total labor, service call, tax, and total. These two fields can be either entered manually, and there are security settings in Alarm that determine whether or not you want to have the option to have material charges and labor charges calculated automatically, or if you want to just enter them manually all the time. If you enter them manually all the time, then there's no override buttons that will be showing. However, if you opt to have the charges calculated automatically, which you'll see in a few minutes how you do that under the ticket related section, then you can still have the work order charges calculated for you. And if you want to still override those charges, you would simply click on the override checkbox and then enter them manually yourself. So for the moment, let's go ahead to show you basically how this works. Let's type in the materials is $400 and labor is $250. And you'll notice that as I'm doing that, it calculates the tax and the total for me. If I want to have a material that is non-taxable, I just click on the non-taxable checkbox and it gets rid of the tax on the material line, and the same thing is true for the labor. These are defaulted from the Alarm settings for TechWeb, so based upon your company requirements for tax, you can have these defaulted as needed. So now let me show you how you would have the materials and labor charges calculated automatically. The materials can be calculated automatically with the serviced or installed items list, and the labor can be calculated automatically via time cards. Now remember, this information can be entered either in the office by your service department, or it can be entered while you're out in the field through TechWeb directly. Through the security settings also for each user, you can decide whether or not a technician can only access and view the time cards and installed or serviced items, or whether or not they'll be allowed to enter them their own. This way you can create the charges back in the office before the technician even goes out and does the job, if you know ahead of time what's going to be done, and the technician simply then brings up the ticket and emails it out to the customer after he records what kind of payment was received. But again, with the security settings, you do have the ability within TechWeb to create the work order on the fly while out on site, and also select what items were installed or serviced, as well as the time spent on the job, and that will automatically calculate for you what you should be charging the customer. So let's take a look at the materials first. Under ticket related, we go to the items list. This is the same as the serviced items list on a service ticket in Alarm. Let's go ahead and select what items we are using on this service job. So let's say that we're going to select new, which is installing a part. Click on the lookup button and you have a list of your inventory to select from. So you can either search as you normally would search any list or select an item. And once you click on select, it brings over information about that item, including you can choose what quantity you've installed and then what price level you want to charge for this item. Within inventory in Alarm, you have or can have price levels for each item. So if you charge differently for an installation of an item than you do for servicing, let's say replacing an item, you can have those price levels and then determine here which price level you want to charge them for. So let's choose select price each. If you want to enter how long it took you to install this particular item just for your own internal tracking purposes, you can. It does not affect the amount being charged. It's just internally tracking how long it takes you to do the work. Is this a new item billable? And if you want the charges to be calculated based upon this item, you'd say yes. And then include on a PO, which is for the Alarm software. And if you do track stock, and this is based upon how you have Alarm set up, if your company header in Alarm is selected where you've stated that you are tracking stock and that you are tracking stock in multiple locations, you have the ability to select what location you are taking this item out of in order to install it. And then inventory will be affected automatically via TechWeb so that you have an accurate count as to what is still left for that item in inventory. So let's say we're going to take this out of truck 1, and then we go ahead and save it. And now let's go ahead and select another item that we're installing, And let's say that item is going to be this one here. And we'll have a quantity of 2. And then let's say we also are on the location and we're going to be repairing an item. And when we say repair an item, we now see a list of what items are currently installed at that customer's site. Because to repair an item or replace an item means they already have something installed previously. So we're going to select what is at their site to be repaired. And again, if we're going to bill them for the repair on this item, we can choose what price level and then whether it's billable or not. In this case, we'll say it's not billable and then save it. The same serviced items list will be used in Alarm if you want to generate an invoice directly from a ticket. You can have the invoice calculated and created based upon this item list as well. Let's go ahead and save the item list. And now we go back to the ticket screen and you'll see that the amount of materials has been calculated for us. This is based upon the inventory pricing for the items we selected, saying what was billable and what price level we wanted to use. If this is not going to be taxable, again, just click on it, remove the tax. If we want to override this calculated price, because right now it's a locked field, we cannot change or type anything in there. If I click on the override button, I can now go ahead and type in a different amount if I want to. And overrides it. If I remove the override checkbox, it goes back to the calculated amount. For labor calculations, you would enter time cards into TechWeb. Under ticket related, go to time cards, and then we'll insert a new time card. And then it automatically is defaulted to who the user is that's logged into TechWeb and also the current time when you created the time card. So for most jobs at this point, all the technician has to do is type in the time that they completed the job, and that's it. If it's a billable job, it'll be yes, and then they can choose what rate code, which can actually be defaulted based upon this user. So in Alarm, under the employee list, you can select what rate code is the default code for this technician, and when they go to create a time card, it will automatically use that rate code. And then also for the overtime and travel time, if there is any, they can enter those hours here as well, including mileage starting and ending, and it'll calculate the total number of miles for you. Let's go ahead and save this. We can also have multiple time cards, so if more than one technician is working on a job, or if the same technician has to return back on site or it's a multiple day job, they can create multiple time cards for this one work order. And then once you click on save, it will go ahead and automatically calculate the labor based upon the number of hours worked and the rate code selected. In Alarm, there is an extensive rate code section where you can specify different rate codes for what the initial service rate is for how many minutes, and then how much the normal rate is for every so many minutes, rounding up or down, or exact time based upon how much time was worked. So based upon that calculation, TechWeb has gone out, figured out exactly what the labor charge should be on the rate code specified, and then entered it here. Just like with materials, if you want to override that amount, you can go ahead and do so, and then type in a different labor rate if you want to. Otherwise, unclick the override button, and it goes back to the calculated labor. If the technician will be accepting payment on the job site, they can enter the type of payment received and then fill in the appropriate information here. They don't have to enter credit card information if they don't want to. If they do, then in the Alarm program, there's a new payment tab for the ticket area based upon authorized users can see it, and then they can use that credit card number to run it manually back in the office. Otherwise, the technician can just leave this information blank. Once they've typed in what's been paid, they then have the customer digitally sign. A digital signature is typically acceptable in a court of law. So by entering their initials, they would enter their initials, and just on the iPad or the iPhone, they just tap in their initials, let's say whatever it is, and then they put their name in. And as you'll notice down the bottom here, as soon as they put their initials in, TechWeb automatically signs it digitally, and this information is stored internally for this ticket record. And it shows the date and time that it was initialed, and also what IP address that your device is attached to, which helps to determine the location of where the signature was performed. As you'll see in a second, if you do really want to have an actual signature by the customer, since web applications cannot accept signatures, there is an alternative, very easy way to do that, which is to email the service ticket to yourself, and then using a PDF annotation application, just have the customer sign off on it, which I'll show you in a second. Otherwise, typically digital signatures are more than acceptable. And then go ahead and click on the email ticket checkbox, and it'll bring up the customer's email address, or you can always override it to a different email address if you want to. So let's put in our own email address here to show you what this looks like, and then you click on Save. And now here's a sample of the email service ticket receipt that you can send to the customer. As you notice that because TechWeb already has all the information about what a technician has to do and the information about the site, there's no need, unlike in Alarm where you're printing a ticket out to give the technician, there's no need to have that information redundant on the printed ticket. So this now acts as a receipt where it actually now shows the customer what equipment was installed or serviced, the pricing, and then your terms are down here, and a place for the customer to sign off if you then open this email up. So example, you can email this to yourself, to your, let's say, iPad, and then open up this PDF ticket within programs like PDF Expert, or there's a number of PDF annotation applications available for the iPad and other devices. And then with their finger, they just go ahead and they just sign in the signature area if you really do want them to sign off. Otherwise, you'll see in the bottom, it shows their initials and it shows their name down here as well. And then down over here, it shows how much they owe, and then if they paid, how much they paid, and how they paid. If they pay by credit card, it'll show the credit card type and the last 4 digits of the credit card number as well. And then when you're done, if you did accept signature, you can go ahead and email that to the customer directly. Or in this case, if you don't need a handwritten signature, but just the initials, you now have the receipt emailed to the customer, and you're all done.